Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. It's been a while since I've looked at Guitar Center's used listings. Sometimes you can find some nice stuff. Let's see if tonight's one of those nights. Alright, after searching through 22 pages, let's go ahead and see what I found that was the coolest, in reverse order, because all the great stuff was hidden at the back. Starting things off here right with a 1975 Les Paul Deluxe. These 70s era Deluxe are really cool guitars. I personally like the sparkle top finishes because they're exotic, they're rare collectors, limited edition type things. But taking a look at this one, looks like our knobs have been replaced because these originally would have had something kind of similar to that, but they would be the top hat reflectors, and these look like the more golden bonnet style. Looks like somebody's definitely replaced the bridge on this one as well, but hopefully still the original mini humbuckers in here yet. I can tell looking at right here, it's been refretted, which isn't necessarily a bad thing on a player's grade model. And yeah, these tuners have definitely been replaced. Those posts are way too big, they had to remount the headstock, and presumably something similar to a Schaller was installed. Which, flipping over to the back, tells us everything we need to know there, and we're correct. Still has the volute, extra wear on the back of the neck, and the body could be more worse for wear. How much are they asking? $3,300. I would say that's a little bit high, but not too much considering this is Guitar Center we're talking about here. This is a great player's grade example that's probably in this condition for a reason. However, as always, there's hardly any description on these things. There's a lot more replaced than replaced tuners in the jack plate. I'm surprised they're not talking about the refret. That's actually kind of a selling feature on a guitar in that condition. However, now that I'm noticing it, it's almost like they might have re-radiused the fretboard because generally you can't see the side marker inlays on the side, so it's like they completely rounded that off. It's either that or it's just a weird photo angle. Running across one of these was an interesting find. So did you know, in the late 80s, there is something called a 335 Studio. You kind of get B.B. King Lucille vibes. These are 335s without the F-holes. Now, I'm sure there's other things that I don't know about these, and one day I do need to check it out, but it almost looks like an ebony fretboard. It's either that, it's just a really dark rosewood, but no fretboard binding, dot inlays, a little bit less fancy of a headstock on them, and you have a backplate because of the lack of F-holes. In many ways, if you wanted a 335 that was easy to modify, this would be perfect for you. No fishing needed. That one's listed at $1,900. That seems to be about what I normally see them for, you know, between $15 to $22. But this is actually the guitar that inspired me to make this episode. I've never seen one exactly like this. So this was the Classic Rock series, which, chef's kiss, perfect play on words here. They painted these guitars to look like marble tops or granite countertops. I think there were two different series within these. They were done up around 2015, so you have to deal with some of the 2015 specs. Yes, it does still have the robo tuners on it. We've got the brass nut, which likely means we've got the 2015 wide fretboard. But yeah, this is what they normally look like. Actually quite attractive, all things considered. And then my initial favorite was Series 1, that they did in a more blue finish. But usually these are like a gray color, whereas this one's like yellow? I couldn't tell, was it the finish that aged? Because yeah, that's what these things are gonna look like in 30, 40 plus years if we're lucky. So yeah, not sure what happened to that one. You generally see these listed anywhere between 15 to 25. But I definitely wanna call these guys up and get an in-hand description of that one, because who knows, it might reek of smoke. Now they've got an 83 SG. It's been a while since we've talked about these. The reason why you would want an 80s SG is the fact that they've returned the nut width a little bit more to what people consider normal, because the 70s ones, they're a little bit thinner. That's especially prevalent in the early 70s. But the other reason why you want an 80s SG is it has the output jack on the side. It's one of the barrel style ones. It's actually pretty cool. But if you're wondering why this thing looks goofy, it's because of that. But it looks like somebody added one of those vintage vibrolas to this one. You know, the Melody Maker style. But if original, we should have Tim Shaw PAFs in here by 1983. However, it might still be tarbacks because those did last a little bit longer in the SGs. But usually by the mid 80s, you're pretty well back into the Tim Shaws with these guys. Looks like we got Schaller strap locks, Spursel tuners put on it. That's a pretty high price for one that has screw holes in the top. But our next SG is a Goddess. This has got to be the absolute worst photo ever. It's so small, you can't tell anything. So when I made these episodes in the past, somebody who works at Guitar Center tried defending themselves. Like, apparently they get given, like, the absolute worst cameras. You would think they would really invest into having a decent camera at every store, because this is a desirable guitar. I'm interested in this. Even at $1,400, I just need more information about it. Check out this video if you need to learn about the Goddess series, but there's 5 colors in the SGs and the Les Paul lineup, and they're just kind of cool. But hey, how about this 57 Les Paul Special? Listed at $14,000. I'm not gonna comment, but it's just a recent price reduction from $15,000. I know player's wear is cool for people, but that looks to me like somebody had a sticker on it, and then when they ripped the sticker off, it ripped the finish off at the same time, which is a shame because everything else about this one is awesome. That's why sometimes you're better off just leaving stickers and decals alone on guitars if they've been there a while, because what you find under it, even if this didn't happen, you still have a weird discoloration. Because interestingly enough, very similar phenomenon back here. It could be a wear pattern, but for my own personal tastes, if I was buying one of these beautiful specials, it wouldn't be that one for me. But hey, look at this price drop. One of the George St. Pierre Les Pauls. This is the rotting zombie flesh, ones that people tend to not like, listed at a little over $3,000 now. Let's just say they're getting closer to the price point where this will probably sell. You can check out this review and demo if you need to learn more about those. I will say, the back of the guitar looks a little bit better than the front because, you know, they encapsulate the entire neck with that design. Not my favorite of the series, but it's there. But speaking of a favorite, here's a 79 Flying V. Love 70s Vs. Cannot get enough of these things. Looks like somebody either has replaced the pickups or just removed the covers, which is pretty common. These things have just gotten so expensive lately, but they are worth it. Now, is this one particularly worth $6,000? Maybe. Kind of depends on some additional details that they're not telling us. But it's at Guitar Center Hollywood. But oh yeah, here's another reason I wanted to make this episode. I saw this one a couple of days ago because it's on like a Google Ads. So 1970 Gibson Gold Crest. So we talked about the Crests in this episode. I own a one-off NAMM show display piece that was used up of old body parts. I call it the Hippo, but it's one of these Crest models. And ever since then, I kind of want to have like an original Crest model. That way, you know, side by side in the museum, you can actually see the differences. But judging by these photos, this one looks like it's been played pretty heavily. Like generally, you will see these things listed, you know, around 10,000, you know, plus minus 3,000. So this one's definitely in the okay price range. If you can talk them down, maybe just a little bit more. And currently we've got one at 10, 8, 15, 10, you know, all over the place. But the thing about these is they're basically ES 330s with the short neck on them, where the neck is really joisted into the body. So, I mean, they're not for everybody player-wise, but what makes them historically significant is the fact that it's one of the very few 70s model Gibsons that utilize Brazilian rosewood. Here was a pretty cool find, 1972 SG-100. So I don't personally like these guitars too much, the SG-1, 2, 100, 200, 300, whatnot. Check them out in this episode. They're very strange Gibsons. They have almost no neck pitch to them at all. So it just always looks like your headstock's broken. But the coolest of the series is the SG-100 that has the P90 variation. All the other ones are weird single coil pickups. But this is basically a 70s spec'd SG Junior, and that's cool, and that's why I want to document one. However, I want to pay about half that price. Oh boy, where do we start with this one? Shred X Explorer, they shredded up this photo. It looks like they used the eBay cropping tool. That looks so bad, especially on the headstock. So yeah, Explorer, stock with EMG pickups and a Kaler. Very limited audience for this thing, but a cool limited edition nonetheless. Seems to be pretty clean. There is a little bit of a collector's market to it. Maybe the right guitar for someone. But hey, the Paul, automatically looking at this one, this is one of the later 80s, the Pauls. Like, in the late 70s, there's the walnut version, which is the most desirable. And then they move over to the Fire brand branding, and then you get like the Deluxe within that. And then eventually after all that, I think they're just trying to use up parts at this point. But the Paul branding does eventually come back. And then you get the Paul 2 in the 90s. But to help sell some of this stuff, they started to use exotic finishes. Like this one looks like it might be Ferrari red. I could be wrong. Yeah, because Ferrari has white underneath it, and I'm not seeing it right there in the wear. But these photos are not good enough to tell if those are the original pickups. But hey, speaking of a weird oddball model, I don't really even want to talk too much about this one because it's one that people have sent me, and it's like, I don't want to talk about this until I have one. Absolutely trash Steinberger system, slim bucker up in the neck, P90. I mean, these are really cool double cuts. I want to do a full review and documentation. The problem is they're rare, you don't find them too much, and that Steinberger, it's just like the Studio Pros. They are awful. Almost every single one of them needs repair, and there's only one guy that can do it, and he's over in like Germany or something. Speaking of weird 80s Gibsons, here's a U2 from the Showcase Edition series, I do believe. This actually started life as silver, but oh, that's cool. We've got Bill Lawrence pickups that have been swapped into this one. It could certainly be priced worse than that. There we go. Here's a real The Paul. These things have gotten expensive lately. There would be a time when I would say that's overpriced, but now that's just about normal. Again, terrible photos. I can tell the knobs have been replaced, so that's a shame. That's at least $100 value right there. Can't really tell on the pickups, but maybe. I mean, the neck pickup is upside down, so I'm gonna just bet that no, those are not the original pickups anymore. Somebody's messed with this. It was probably sold as a husk at one point in time, which was the sad fate of many of those. Probably not the best buy unless you can verify the pickups. But hey, we were talking about the early 70s SGs. Here's one of these specials. 2000 isn't too bad, but what makes these cool is these are mini humbuckers. If it's still the stock ones, it's kind of hard to see in this photo because they have the black covers on them. But it's very common for people to have routed these out for full-size humbuckers, and then people think there's some sort of a weird SG standard that doesn't have like the crown inlay and stuff, but no, it's just because it's a converted one of these guys. But this thing has certainly caught my attention. 1980 Les Paul Standard, natural finish, 4,000, which is within the realm of possibility if it's actually a nice example. And that top is looking promising to where if that's in clean shape, yeah, they can certainly get 4,000 on this. However, it's looking like it might have been refretted, so it might not be a collector's example. More information would be needed there. Speaking of the Pauls, here's the Hawk. I've been looking for one of these for like $600. I'm gonna have to sell it for about that so I can break even. But ultimately, I'd prefer the Fruit of the Loom signature edition. But yeah, it's like a Nighthawk type shape. Wrap tail, 2 humbuckers, very stripped and laid back. Now that I've tried a fancier high-end one in this episode, I would probably end up liking this guitar. This is actually a screamin' deal. So Gibson Signature Player Plus top, but if I remember correctly, these were around 2018. They didn't sell well and they blew them out for as cheap as $1,100. Ever since then, these things on the used market have been like $1,500 to $1,800 guitars. Now things might have changed since then, but one of these for $1,200, that is a good price. Looks like it's got some sort of an ugly gash right here, but that top is spectacular. The only thing to know about these though, satin finishes with rich light fretboards. No mention of a case down here, so maybe that's why this one's so cheap. Similar story on this, Derek Trucks SGs. I remember it was like around 2018 when they started to blow these things out. Like maybe they just made way too many of them, but you could get these at Sweetwater for $1,100. And I bought 4 of them brand new. And I had good luck selling them between like $1,400 and $1,500. Nowadays, they've been creeping up to that $2,000 range, so that's not too bad for in good condition. They're nice SGs. You get the coolness of the vibrola without the vibrola. But oh yes, I needed to really look into this one. When I saw this, I was like, ooh, 1982 Les Paul Studio Custom. Okay guys, the Studio came out in 1983, so this could be potentially like an early prototype. Or it might be a repainted silver streak or something. So let us dig in here. It's got the Les Paul custom binding. It's got our Posi-Lock strap locks on it yet. Stock factory Kaler, it looks like. Knobs have likely been replaced because it's usually around 1985 when they stop aging. Like at first I thought, okay, is this one of those Roland synthesizer versions of one of these? But it's not looking like it. Okay, yeah, there we go. 1984. Silly Guitar Center. Yeah, so that's just a Studio Custom that somebody has taken our pickup covers off of. If you like Kalers, it's not a terrible price. But seriously, check out these videos on those things. They are sleeper models. But then hey, an SGGT. They don't tell us what color it is, but I think it's one of the blue ones. 5,000 is not a terrible price on those. These are kind of collector's items. I need to document one. And apparently there's still a bunch of these studio monitors kicking around. I'm so happy I bought my big set. I've never actually used them. I think it's the LP8, because you just never see those things anymore. You see the smaller 4s and 6s almost all the time, but I think I bought my set for about that much, and I get the one that's twice the size of that. Those are future collectibles. Maybe not in 5 years, maybe not in 10 years, but like 30, 40 years, yeah, people will be paying burst prices for them. Speaking of 80s, looks like, ooh, nice. D serial number, but this is a Carina Flying V in ebony. You don't find many in that finish. It's sad, the prices of these things doubled as soon as the collector's edition came out, and like the $10,000 brand new Carinas, because these used to be like $4,000 to $6,000 guitars. Now everybody wants so much more. But I'd say this episode's getting pretty long. Let's do a lightning round. We've got a late 90s small trapezoid inlace Les Paul Studio. Captain Kirk Douglas. It's interesting to see retailers sell things used for more than they did brand new. Like, it makes sense on Reverb because, I mean, that's how it is. But this is Guitar Center. They likely sold this thing for $2,500 new, then bought it back for $2,000, and now they have it priced at $32. It just seems a bit funny from an authorized dealer. No hate, though, because, I mean, that's just what these things sell for now. Custom color Les Paul Junior in all gold. That's nice. Les Paul Studio T in a finish you don't see every day. Looks like an at-home DIY pinstripe job that turned out somewhat successful on this 57 reissue. Similar story on this Jim James as the Kirk Douglas. A Les Paul Studio that didn't have much of a story to it. Okay, it's one of the Swamp Ash Studios. Those are nice. $1,000 is not too bad for one of those. But, oh, okay, I see. It's been worn through in the finish right there. A seemingly okay price on a Murphy Aged. One of these strange SG Future guitars with its Steinberger tuners. Not a terrible price. This isn't too bad of a price on an L6S if it's all original. There's one of those 339 Studios. Not too bad of a price on one of those if you want one. Check out the review and demo here. There's a grabber here. And lastly, one of the coveted Firebird Studios. All right, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed checking out Guitar Center's used inventory with me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.